To the Aspie Bridge show, which is part of the World of Ability Podcast Network. Suzanne Plumley. Um, we're here every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central. Um, talking about like diagnosis Asperger's along with other things. So I'm gonna pass it over to Suzanne to get started.
Great, Emily. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here for another week. This is week 4 of our tools for getting ready to approach the bridge. And before I go there, you know what I'm going to say? With all the awesome Aspie and autistic level 1 individuals who are out in the world spreading their message about what autism is, such as Paul Micallef in Australia, Sam Stein in the Netherlands, Sarah Hendricks in the UK, Temple Grandin in the US, and a number of others in the US who are telling you what autism is. The mission of the Aspie Bridge is to bring you the resources, the wonderful people that I've started to line up to be your resources, to show you that going back into society is not a scary place where you're going to be alone. I have Michelle here with me today, and I've had a number of other coaches who are my friends who have stepped up to be volunteers called bridge builders who will help you in their area of expertise to show you that you're not alone. All you need to do is to take the steps to get to the bridge where I am. And I am your torchbearer. I am the one that say to you, it is possible because I've done it and I am living the life I love, and so can you. So, without further ado, let me introduce to you my coach this week. Her name is Michelle DeSantis. Did I say that correctly?
Almost, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Michelle. Tell us a little bit about you and your background and why you might have been inspired to get onto my show today.
Okay. Thank you, Suzanne, for doing this. I think this is a great service to the world. So my name is Michelle Lesane. The joke in my family is it rhymes with insane, but it's Lesane DeSantis. Um, I'm a certified dream builder coach and life mastery consultant. My professional background is I'm a therapist. Actually, I have a master's in social work. So I've worked in a variety of different modalities. I've worked in traumatic brain and spinal cord injury, homelessness, hospice, oncology, and domestic violence, to name some of them. And I really love therapy. I really see the value of it. I'm a product of good therapy. But about 2 years ago or so, I decided to expand my scope and include coaching as well. And so I got involved with the Brave Thinking Institute, and that's where I got connected with some other amazing humans like Suzanne, like you. Um, and the reason I wanted to do this is because my mission for my company, which is creating a more powerful you, is to be in service to my fellow man and to provide that service with excellence, integrity, and compassion. And I see you doing that, Suzanne. And so I just want to be a part of the change that I'd like to see in the world.
Oh, Michelle, I am so proud to have you be part of this. Makes me do feel so great to know the number of wonderful coaches I've had that have stepped up from Brave Thinking Institute and a couple outside of Brave Institute to say they like the mission of helping women who feel trapped, who feel traumatized, who feel victimized, who think that the other side of this bridge is a scary, nasty place. And it's not. And if you can get connected to me, I can connect you to the resources for the individuals who can help you. Now, you may want to just coach with me. You may want to be such that you want to be with someone who is autistic, someone who has walked the journey. That's why I call myself the torchbearer, because I have walked your journey up until 2018. My life didn't look this good.
Mm.
And that's why I want to tell you all about these tools, because these are the very tools that I use to feel who I am today, feel great about my life. And if I can show you that they work, it's going to make you feel a lot better about making them work for you. Now, let's recap. The first week of May, right after I came back from my Dream Builder conference, We talked about notice what you're noticing. And now I said a lot in that, but the key to that is noticing your 5 strengths, noticing those 5 things that really make you come alive every morning. It's like you jump out of bed and you want to work on this special project. What are your testaments of life? What things do you love to do? Because that's your key to having a full life. Knowing what lights you up. And I told you, put it on your refrigerator, put it on your bathroom window, put it next to your bedside, just to keep reminding you that you're more than your diagnosis. I don't think any one of you get up and say, oh, gonna live another autistic life day. Well, at least I hope you don't. I mean, I know I don't. I get excited, and like today is podcast day, so I get excited about that. And it's something I enjoy. And I put this on my calendar a year ago, 2 years ago, to say someday I'd like to do a podcast. And Michelle's saying that right now. Wow, this is kind of a lot of fun. So that's what week 1 is. Week 2, I did with Julie Deanne, and we talked about your longing and discontent. And what that meant was looking at where your life is right now. What parts do you love? Keep those parts. They're important. They've led you to get you where you are there, which means you've taken action steps to get there. But now you may have some discontent. For me, I had a lot of struggles with my family not accepting me. One, because I was a daughter, not 2 sons, as my brothers were. That was my first area. 2, because I did have a congenital birth defect of a very low thyroid. They just never thought I would amount to much. That's where my discontent was. And so I went in search of a family that did validate me, did see my gifts. And that is the Brave Thinking Institute, where Michelle and I are both certified as coaches. And let me tell you, once I found that organization, my life changed. And I am here to do that for you with all of my wonderful friends here that I've had before now, and now Michelle as well. We're going to help you. Now, week 3, Mark Maynard and I went all around the 4 quadrants of life: health and well-being, relationships, vocation, and time and money freedom. And we said that you need to start building a vision for what each quadrant should look like that matters to you. Not matters to the man down the street, not matters to Michelle, not matters to me, you. What makes you want to improve your life in those 4 quadrants? What would you love? Now, those are all important because the last 2 tools Michelle and I are talking about today. Now, we've renamed them because the last 2 are, I would say, they need to be adjusted for the Aspie autistic world. Because in that, it talks about being a little uncomfortable in the interest of growth. Now, I know for each and every one of you, if you're uncomfortable because you're already uncomfortable, the chances of you progressing might be a little bit harder, might be a little bit more challenging. You say, oh, my life is already hard enough. I don't want to be uncomfortable. We get that. It's not about that here on the Aspie Bridge. My mission is to get you to take a little step, maybe a bigger step, or maybe a bigger step. And we'll tell you more about that just to get you moving toward the bridge where I can help you. If you're way in the forest here, you're not going to get to the bridge. You need to have the self-motivation and desire to do it. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to start out with. Okay. And it's all based on your decisions of what you want your life to be. Raise your hand if you're satisfied with your life exactly the way it is right now. Maybe you are. Raise your hand if you choose to stay stuck in your current circumstances of your diagnosis and just throw up your hands and say, well, I am ASD, I'm PDA, I'm HSP, which is what I also am. I'm this, I'm that, I'm bipolar. Are you happy with those titles? You're not those titles, and we'll tell you why. But if you're happy, well, you're not going to be motivated to move forward. Now, I was happy with the AS, but I dropped the D for me, and I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. The last one, raise your hand if you want to rise above the normal challenges associated with autism or mental health diagnosis. And Michelle, can you tell people some of the different things that they might be experiencing that might keep them stuck?
Sure. So, Suzanne and I had a little conversation last night, and there's a couple of things I wanted to bring up. First of all, I think, Suzanne, it's so powerful what you're doing because you're living by example. And I know that whatever we struggle or strive for in life, it really helps to have someone to connect with and have that structure of support. So I just applaud the work that you're doing in the world and what you're bringing. One of my very dearest friends, her daughter has Asperger's, and I know it's been a struggle not only for her daughter, who's 30 now, but for mom too, because mom wants to see her live her fullest and best life. So I just want to thank you for that. And then, you and I were talking about language and the importance of language. And so Suzanne and I were talking about the power of I am. And I think for a lot of people, whatever the diagnosis, as a mental health professional, I was telling Suzanne, I don't care to diagnose. I don't really like diagnosing because I find that people tend to identify with the diagnosis. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a good thing or a bad thing. That's something we assign to it in our minds. But what I've noticed is I think people are limited and held back when they identify with a negative aspect of a diagnosis. For example, I'm going to speak to a mental health diagnosis of bipolar. In English, we have one verb, to be, that we say, I am Michelle, I am a therapist, I am a wife, I am a mother. And that I am identifies how we see ourselves in the world. And a lot of other languages, there's two verbs for to be, and they signify different things. So I think what's interesting is the power of the verb I am, and without going into anything deeply religious, this is a concept that spans millennia and all kinds of religious traditions. In fact, people that meditate and say Om is Sanskrit for I am. So when we say I am something, we're putting power behind that. And to circle back to the first tool, Suzanne, when you're talking about noticing what you're noticing, remember in therapy, and that is cognitive behavioral therapy's gold standard tool for depression and anxiety is notice what you're noticing. But in therapy, they say thinking about what you think about.
Yes.
So when you notice, because a lot of times I think we don't notice when we're saying I'm depressed. I'm anxious. I'm so anxious. We aren't realizing that we're putting power to that.
Oh, yeah.
So, in the autism and Aspie world, I think a lot of times, there is a lot of misunderstanding. There is a lot of, and in the community in general, I think that a lot of people don't have someone like you to look to go, well, what is possible?
Mm-hmm.
And it's learning to tune in and calibrate to what is possible for them.
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And as I said, Brave Thinking Institute is run by Mary Morrissey. And I had to tell you, she is the very first person within BTI and the leader at that who saw that I was far more than the pain I brought. I walked into my very first event with them in a whole suit of armor because I was so pained by my past that in order for me to cope with day-to-day living, I felt like I was wearing this head-to-toe armor with like about 4 cement bricks in front of my heart just to keep my heart from falling apart. And then here's this woman who says, no, you're doing some things I haven't even taught other people how to do yet. Can you imagine my armor just fell off completely? Because finally someone saw my heart. They saw my passion. They didn't say, oh, you must have come from a broken home. Oh, you must feel so bad about yourself. Oh, I'm sorry. No, she instead looked at my asset and said, wow, I can't believe you did this. I haven't even taught it yet. Can you imagine how big I got in that day? That's what we want to do for you. Help you see that those assets are what are going to bring you alive. Now, I do have to be a little careful because so many people question if I am autistic or not. I've been known to be called an ableist, whereby they don't believe that I'm actually autistic. And two, because I use the autism level 1, some of the people who have level 2 and level 3 children are like, well, that's not possible for my kid because they're level 2 or level 3. Now, I don't use the numbers 1, 2, and 3 with judgment. I'm just trying to help society know that there are different levels of behavior that can be expected. So I use it as explanations, not as labels. And I'd like to read you this one section. Addressing ableism requires multifaceted approach, which, as I say, it's not just a label. Okay, you're level 2. You can't talk very well. You can't live on your own. You can't. But I can. Now, that would be an ableist mentality saying, well, only the level 1s can have a life because the level 2s can't live by themselves and the level 3s may have trouble communicating. No. I use it as an explanation so that society doesn't expect you to conform to the rest of the norms. And as I wrote in my article when I was talking about it today, I said, you know what? We are not that. We are people that have environmental challenges or disadvantages that require additional services. You're not autistic level 2 and can't live on your own. You're not autistic level 3. You're not even autistic level 1 where it comes to a disability. Yes, we have disadvantages, not disorders. And that's why I want to leave the D off. You are not disordered. You don't need to be fixed. We just need to find the right people to help you find the way in life. So my very first tool for week 4 is called Approaching the Bridge. Taking that basket of assets, things that help you jump out of bed in the morning and say, I can't wait to read my book all about science fiction. I can't wait to add to another part of my collection. I can't wait to set up the train. I can't wait to whatever it is that makes you feel with joy. I can't wait to draw my next cartoon character. Whatever it is, it's all valued. It's all valued. And you need to bring that basket and say, I'm going to take steps toward finding my way in the world that uses my basket and brings me to life. And that requires you to kind of put aside the D of disabled, kind of put aside the D of disordered and say, no, I am able. I do have assets. And I am going to approach that bridge because there's someone there who will help me. What do you think about that, Michelle?
I was bringing tears to my eyes, honestly, because, also, Suzanne, we didn't really speak about this last night, but in the mental health community, people that are diagnosing, it's really in alignment with this tool, right? We do the best we can with what we know. So without going into a lot of clinical detail, the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, is how clinicians make diagnoses in mental health. So I think with the autism, there's overlap because there's neurological components as well. But the DSM is in its 5th edition and a revised. Why? Because our understanding in the health field continues to evolve and change. And so just to exactly to your point that when we perceive ourselves as disordered, whatever that label is, it is a limitation. You were talking about Mary seeing you, and I feel like what you were saying is she didn't see Suzanne with limitations. She saw Suzanne with possibilities.
She certainly did.
I love how, and again, I just feel like it's so powerful to have a woman like you that this isn't something you're speaking about theoretically. This is experiential for you, and this is your life's mission. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, we have that phrase, as you know, Michelle, in Brave Thinking Institute, that is, the content of my life became the curriculum of my evolution. So I was meant to live a troubled life so that I could see, I could try on, I could feel the armor, the pain, the anguish of being underemployed, of not getting work. Because if I had all those things, would you really trust that I could help you? And I'm guessing that while you may have different people in your life that do see your gifts, you still want someone that understands exactly what you've gone through. And I'm the person who can do that. And I have my own life coaching practice, but I also call upon people like Michelle and the rest of my bridge builders because there's no way I can possibly know it all. And I'm not even going to begin to tell you. I have a woman who can help you with tactful communication. I have Mark who can help the guys. I can have Jennifer who can help you keep a organized home to keep your life organized. I have so many, and throughout the entire year of 2024, you're going to see so many more. Julie's going to help you talk to your children's teachers so that there is a communication there of what's expected of your children, regardless of whether or not they are also having spectrum challenges. So, no matter who you need, and you get eight free coaches who will help you in the 8 most significant areas of your life. And then after that, I apply a small sliding scale so that you understand that you do have to invest a little bit. Now, first investment, though, is action. If you stay in the forest, which is not over there, but over here, if you stay in the forest and you don't take action steps, there's nothing I can do to help you. Because you have to invest your own motivation, your own action steps to get you to this point. I can't do that for you. Michelle can't do that for you. None of the bridge builders can do that for you. So that's why I call approaching the bridge is similar to our do what you can with what you have from where you are. And what does that mean? I know that's a mouthful, isn't it? That's why I wanted to simplify it and say approaching the bridge. Approaching the bridge is saying to yourself, I can do these things. I want to do them. I can, let's just say you love books. We use that, Michelle and I were talking about that last night. Well, I love books. What can I do with books? I can start a book drive. Oh, well, now that's an interesting idea, isn't it? So you start collecting books from people who don't want their books anymore. That's an action step. I can go to the library and spend an hour reading to kids different books. There's another action step. I can. So you come up with all these different ideas of what you can do. And I always like to say, yes, I am autistic and look at what I can do. That's my slogan. I am autistic and look what I can do, because that explains a can do attitude. I'm not saying I'm autistic and I can't teach full time, or that's not a good example because I can teach full time. I can't be a nurse full time for 12 hours. That is my disadvantage. I can't work on my feet for 12 hours, but I don't choose to. That's not an asset of mine. I can, however, work at Starbucks and be at the drive-through and say hello to everybody and how are you? I can do that. Start to really look at what you can do. Try and forget about what you can do. Sure, I would love to be an architect and build beautiful homes, but that's not my asset. My asset is here, not there. So I'm okay with that. And that's one of the things you have to acknowledge, some things that may be a limitation to us. Standing on our feet for 12 hours may be a limitation. Working more than 6 hours at any given time Maybe. It's all about acknowledging. I'm not saying accepting, because accepting means you're going to stay at home and do nothing. That's not it. What would you like to add into this, Michelle?
I agree so much with, I resonate with what you're saying, Suzanne. And, you know, as someone, I am not on the spectrum and I don't have Asperger's, I have a lot of limitations up until now. So I think we all have limitations. And I've been a student of transformational work for many years before even I found Brave Thinking. And, Tony Robbins, I think, says it this way, but it's, where focus goes, energy flows. Meaning what we put our attention on tends to grow. And that could be in the real world, in the realm of tangible, but also more importantly, I think in our minds. So when you focus on what you can do, where you are with what you have, there's going to be energy, movement, and change. And that's, I think that is, if you stop and really think about it, it's so powerful.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it goes back to what Mark and I were talking about last week. Where is your passion? My passion is not in serving people who are sick. Mm-hmm. Sick mean physically sick in the hospital as a nurse or a doctor or as a surgeon. That's not my passion. Do I want to see them? Well, of course I do, but that's not my passion to be the one to do that. So you have to look at your life and your own personal passions. What lights you up? Maybe you do love running. Maybe you would love to run track every day. In which case, when I brought up the idea of selling sneakers, maybe you're the person who knows what sneakers are the best and the most comfortable. Maybe you can help in that arena. I was always coming away from that because I'm not a runner. Okay, there we go. I'm not a runner. That's okay. I don't need to be a runner. And you don't need to be everything you don't want to be. It's what can you do and what do you love to do? That's the key. And that's going to get you to the beginning of the bridge. So here's the next step. And I started to point this out a few moments ago. We talked about approaching the bridge as gain the action steps, gain the confidence to get you to the beginning of the bridge. What about when you get to the other side of it? Well, you get to the other side, you're like, all right, now what? Well, that's where we have what I call following your journey. Coming up with a list of all the different activities. I could collect books. I could read to children. I could work in a bookstore. I could. And I recommend even using those I could, I can statements because it really fills your heart with, yes, I can do that, can I? But you want to come up with, I can work in a library with kids. I can teach children about what books are all about animals. Just you want to just keep writing a list of all the things that you can and would love to do. And that's why I call it follow your journey. Maybe for a little while you want to read books to children in a library, and then you get to that point of, I've done that. And I loved it, but my heart's saying I want more. I want more. So you're never done once you find that one journey. Your journey keeps going. That's why I call it follow your journey, not follow your next step. You have to take a step, but you don't have to stay stuck in that step. What do you think, Michelle?
Oh gosh, a whole lot of thoughts flooded into my mind. But it brought to mind, I think I told you last night about my daughter. My daughter was given a diagnosis when she was 9 or 10 years old of dyscalculia, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's kind of the mathematical version of dyslexia. And I didn't tell you this, but I'm going to tell you quickly, Suzanne. I had no idea that was even a thing. We had just started homeschooling her, and I was drilling her on some math problems, and this particular resource is called Saxon Math, and it's considered the gold standard for homeschool math. Well, it's the worst thing you could do to someone with dyscalculia, but I didn't know that at the time. And we had just reached a point where there was a lot of crying. And so when we had her tested and the diagnosis came back, she was given a learning disability, an LD diagnosis. And the clinician that gave the exam, I wanted to fight him on it as a mama. And I was a younger mama at the time and, doing the best I could with what I had from where I was. I felt like she would be limited by that label. And the doctor very wisely counseled me, think about what opportunities she'll have with the label. The label afforded her the ability to get access to more resources, which she needed, which is what you're providing here with these tools and steps and with your coaching, Suzanne, is access to resources. Because of that LD diagnosis that I was able to, with Grace, accept, she got funding. So she had private tutoring all the rest of her school career. She just graduated from high school. The dyscalculia has come off of her because she had so much tutoring with it. But had I been averse to that and really stubbornly said, no, this is not good, I feel like I would have prevented her from making steps. And in essence, like now where she goes is following that journey, because she got to that bridge. We found out, okay, this is what your particular issue, this is why the math isn't making sense to you. And then we used the resources we had available to us. And now going into college, she has a whole different mindset and outlook on whatever math courses she has to take. So I don't know if that exactly answered your question, but that popped into my.
Absolutely. In fact, as you know, I was going to ask you to tell that story. I got ahead of myself, but I'm glad you got a chance to say it. Before we go back and talk more about finding your journey, I want to say that navigating autism is like following a roadmap. Now, there are some of you who are going to be running to the bridge saying, here I am ready. And that's wonderful. Some of you, the light turned on and you're like, wow, there's someone who has done it. I want to do it too. I'm ready. That's kind of like jumping onto the highway and racing to the bridge. And that's wonderful. However, that's not everybody's cup of tea. And I want to caution each person who is autistic, just like our thumbprints are different and we're on the spectrum. And if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. Do not compare yourself to another autistic person because you're going to hurt yourself. My favorite story is the rabbit and the tortoise and the hare, where the tortoise keeps going and the rabbit has raced to where the rabbit thinks they're going to get to. And then they kind of stop and they're like, that turtle's not coming. Don't compare yourself to the rabbit, please. Even don't compare yourself to another turtle. You're taking the steps that are meant for you. The turtle keeps putting one foot in front of the other, and the turtle's going to get there, or the tortoise in the case of the story. You have to go at the speed that you're comfortable with. Don't compare yourself to another autistic person. And please don't try to keep up with. I tried to keep up with my brothers. Now, that isn't the worst thing because I developed within me perseverance and determination because I wanted to be seen by my family. And those aren't bad traits unless you make yourself sick trying to do that. You do have to acknowledge what you can do from where you are with what you have. And you have to take it at your pace because no one wants to see you break down and frustrated and give up. You have to go at your pace. So, as I say, some people think it's highways, other people prefer it's roads. Okay, as long as I take one step and complete it, then take the next step and complete it, then take the next step and complete it, you're still taking very valuable action steps. You really are. It's the people that sit down and say, nope, unless someone does it for me, I'm not doing it. And you will unfortunately stay stuck. Remember my Henry Ford, if you think you can, you think you can't, you're right. Those people who stay in the woods and say, I can't do it unless someone does it for me, unfortunately may not get as far in life as those who are like, okay, what can I do next? And then there are some people who are like, you know what? I like this. I'll try it. I'll see how it goes. Oh, I kind of like it. I'll keep going. That would be like driving on the street. You're careful, you're looking around, you're making sure that it's vibing with your heart, making sure your heart feels comfortable, but that's still an action step. It is still an action step. You have to take it at your pace. Let's see. Yes, we know when to take a step because we're acknowledging what we can do. And what you can do, once you start saying, wow, I got that step, and that felt pretty good. What if I did? What if I did? What if I did? That what if I did and coming up with ideas is following your journey.
Mm.
It's putting one foot in front of the other, and pretty soon you're going to get to the bridge and you're going to say, but I'm not quite sure on how to get dressed up for an interview. Okay, well, I just so happen I have my girlfriend Renee Crane, who's a coach, who can help you come up with an image to go into an interview and feel good about yourself. Or, I get tired at the end of the day making meals. Well, I have someone for that too. And these are all different people that I'm introduced you to. But Renee and Julie, they're all different resources that I can connect you with. So, Michelle, what would you like to add to that idea?
I love the idea of, like you said, and I know this podcast is specifically for people with some spectrum of autism, right? But everything you're saying applies to all of us,
It
really,
really
is,
does.
in that we have to take the next step. And I think they say in one of the Brave Thinking trainings, no wind is favorable to the sailor with no destination.
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
Having an idea of, like you said at the beginning, what are my strengths, what are my passions, what lights me up. And for any of us, I think in any undertaking we do in life, I can remember when I started graduate school, I didn't think I was smart enough to do it. I don't know why. I was not a young woman. I was 31, but I kept trying to figure out how I was going to be a therapist in the world the first day of graduate school. And I was very, very fortunate and blessed to be surrounded by amazing, strong women where I went to school. And I started learning that you can't be the therapist when you're in your first semester of grad school. You just have to be where you are. And I think that also having the support is critical to have, like you said, to be able to link resources. So like I had a variety of women that could speak into my heart and into my life in different ways during that time. And so that when I graduated, I remember thinking at the beginning of the program, I didn't feel so much like I had so much to offer. My heart, my longing, discontent was calling me to the next iteration of myself, but I was scared and I didn't know if I could do it. God, the universe poured resources and love into my life. And so when I graduated, I felt like I have something to offer the world. And I think that, this, like you said, that when you cross the bridge and you get to the other side and you're on your journey, it is exactly that. It's a series of steps, but you're going to be better equipped because you have more resources, you have more knowledge, you have more understanding, you have more awareness of what makes you you. And that is, there's no, my father, I didn't tell you this yesterday, Suzanne, my father was a pilot. And he came from very humble backgrounds, but he loved flying airplanes. And he used to tell me all my life growing up, he would say, Michelle, find something you love to do for a living and you never have to go to work. And it took me a long time to find, for me, it took me a long time to find what that thing is. But that's what you were talking about. Like, let's say you wanted to read books because you love books. And then, after a period of time, your heart's calling. It's that awareness of saying, what do I love? Because when you're really executing what you love, is there a component to doing a coaching business? There are aspects of it that I don't necessarily love, but the mission, which is to provide excellent care to people, I adore it. And it's not. And so I think you're providing such a framework. It's like all the tools and resources you need. Like if you wanted to go build a beautiful home, it doesn't matter how skilled you are without the tools. You have to have the tools. And so I love that you're providing these tools. And if it's something you yourself don't offer, then you're saying, here's a toolkit. Here's how you get to the toolkit. And I think it's just really extraordinary what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I kind of consider myself the basic tools with now my specialty tool, if you want to call it, is enrichment. I help women who may not know what their passions are to find their passion. That's where my enrichment coaching comes in. I take you through a series of different little mini badges because my background is Girl Scouting. And I found this really great book called The Adult Girl Scout, where I can take you through a number of steps and you can say, yeah, this one's not quite resonating with me. What about that one? Oh, well, okay, let's try that one. So I help with different mini courses so that you can find your passion because maybe you feel a little scattered, like you like everything, but nothing a lot. So my special tool is enrichment coach, but I don't have some of the other tools, and that's where all of these other wonderful people come in. Imagine them holding hands to help you go across the bridge or linking arms with you.
Mhm.
You'll never be alone again. Now, you brought up something really interesting, Michelle, that I really want to put in there, and we learn it at BTI. Don't worry about the how.
Hmm.
Don't worry about the how. Just keep asking yourself, I want to work in the library. Well, what step would you take to work in the library? Well, there's a library down the street from me. I could go and talk to the librarian. That's the how that takes care of yourself. You don't have to think about it of the how. You don't have to think about each and every little step. When you get an idea, the next step comes to you. It's like putting one foot in front of the other when you go across a lake. Have you ever gone across a little brook and you step from one pebble, or not pebble, but one rock to the next rock to the next rock? You're not saying, well, gee, how am I going to step to that next rock? And then how am I going to step to that next rock? It kind of comes intuitively. Oh, well, that's the next one in line. I'll step there. And coming up with your steps is the same way. You don't have to put a lot of thought because the idea is already there. You just will do it intuitively. Don't worry about the how. Let's just say you have a big dream to own the library. Don't step so far as to say, well, if I can't own a library right now, I'm not going to own the library. You have to take those little steps. Now, the last thing we have in the last few minutes we have is going over how aggressively or how fast do you feel comfortable taking these steps? Are you willing to go pretty aggressively? Like, I want to take a step every day. That's great. For me, I'm like, well, today I want to work on this project in writing. Tomorrow I want to work on my podcast. The next day, that would be very aggressive. And if you're just starting out, I wouldn't recommend that yet. I would recommend maybe a moderate. Well, I would like to try something weekly because I have taken some steps in the past to get me where I am now. So I think if I took one step a week, I feel good about that. And then there are others of you who are like, I'm so stuck on my couch, I don't know what to do next. Well, for those of you, I recommend taking what I called, let's see, gradual steps. I don't know, I didn't think of that. Gradual steps. I am going to get off the couch today and I'm going to go to the library. That's a step. Getting off your couch and going to the library is a step. Don't discount it because doesn't feel like anything. Because once you get to the library, you're going to see the next step. And then you're taking the gradual steps. Nothing wrong with that. Getting yourself off the couch is the first step. Getting yourself to turn off the TV and go outside and take a walk if you want to work on your fitness. First step. is walking out the door. Don't say, oh, it's not fast enough. You have to go at your own speed. Remember what I talked about before? The highway versus the road versus the street. No competition. You do you. Don't try and do anyone else. And we have what is called transformational willingness.
Mm.
Are you willing to step into getting up off the couch to turn off the TV, to walk outside? Are you willing to go to the library? Are you willing to go check out the sneakers that you could sell if you're a runner? Are you willing to go to the track? Are you willing? Is the first step, really. And then taking that step. And let's just say you have been a gradual action taker and you're getting excited. You're not stuck on the gradual. You can say, well, next week I want to do this, and do it. And the following week I want to do this. You have to go at the speed that's most comfortable for you. Now, as I said, Michelle and I work under a little different thing because, one, I've been in BTI for 6 years, so I've gotten accustomed to their format. So I am up at the aggressive level of taking steps because I get my passions up there. That doesn't mean you have to keep up with me or Michelle or anyone else. You do you. And that's the biggest thing. It's not follow my journey, it's not follow Michelle's journey, it's follow your journey. Michelle, what else can you add to this in our closing moments?
I love the idea of celebrating every win, even things that seem to be small, because you're right. You know, if you don't get off the couch, it all starts from that, and that's something that's really helped me grow a lot in my life since I got with BTI. I'm in my 3rd year now, but it's just being able to celebrate those wins, every win.
Mm-hmm. Would you say you're an aggressive, a moderate, or a gradual learner in being a coach?
Moderate.
Moderate. And that's a very healthy way
Yeah.
to be. I mean, I think that we all, and again, Michelle said a number of times, it's not just about being an Aspie that these tools work. It works for everybody. I've just come up with a language
Mm-hmm.
because I understand how much pressure you already feel like you're under. And if you go with some of the BTI ideas that we have, you're going to feel uncomfortable and you may feel defeated very quickly if you're not going at your own pace. So I've converted the language such that I want to see you take a step. It doesn't matter whether or not how fast you go. And I certainly don't want you to do it uncomfortable. You have enough pressure going on right now. That is, we're going to work you up to the level of where you feel comfortable taking one step after the other. And if you never run, that's not a problem. You're taking steps. If you're walking quickly, you decide what you are comfortable doing and do it.
Mm.
That's the most important thing. Nike says, just do it. That's their slogan. And that's all I want to see you do it. I don't want you to be uncomfortable. I want you to feel satisfied with your life. I want you to live your life and triumphantly, not just stay on the couch and say never.
Mm-hmm.
So, Michelle, I want to thank you for coming today. Would you like to put any last words in?
I just would back at you, Suzanne. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope that this was helpful to whoever's watching.
I certainly think so. I know there were a number of people who told me before we even started that they couldn't wait to hear our podcast, because one of the biggest things my ladies have is if they don't have an income, they feel like they're stuck paying Medicare to a therapist that may not understand as well as you do.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, not all therapists are created the same out there. And the fact that you and my girlfriend, Teresa Garvin, have both have the therapy background, but have come to coaching, that's going to make you be a stronger therapist for my ladies. And it allows them to use maybe their Medicare card. But at the same time, I want you to know that there are some therapists out there that may not understand as well. And I urge you to come to me so I can connect you with someone like Michelle or to Teresa. But then if maybe you want a little bit different route and go more therapy and go more coaching completely and find your passion. There's so many more avenues out there. It's not one highway. There are many highways, and we're going to get you to that life you would love. So I want to say thank you to Michelle. I really loved having you here. What an awesome
Thank you.
adventure this has been. Next week on the Aspie Bridge Show, and next month actually, we're going to get into relationships. First, we're going to talk about spousal relationships or your significant other. And then we're going to talk about the extended family and how grandmas and grandpas can relate to their autistic and grandchildren. Third, I'm bringing on my boss from Starbucks to help you ladies understand a boss worker relationship that has gone very well and how you can find that in your workplace. Logan and I have been really cohesive, and you're going to learn what made it a successful relationship, because I know a lot of you have trouble finding that or creating that development with that supervisor, that manager, where you can stay there. I just celebrated 5 years at Starbucks, and I feel proud because Logan, I had 7 managers, and they were not all at the level of Amy and Logan. So that's an important one. And then Wendy is coming back for our last week, and Wendy is going to talk about relationships in the autistic world. So we're going to have a fun week of month of June. Then July is our Freedom Week, and I'll tell you about that next month. So I want to thank you for coming to the Aspie Bridge Show. I want to thank Michelle for being my guest today, and thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.